Apologies, my phone filled up on space. Good example of hexagram 12 blocked, our supporting hexagram, which we are reading right now. Key questions. What work can you do when nothing is working? Who are you when no one is noticing? Oracle, blocking it. Non-people, noble one's constancy bears no fruit. Great goes, small comes. Nothing moves or grows. Communication doesn't happen. Everything is negated and blocked. And this is because of non-people. That may mean that some people are a consistently, exclusively, and pathologically negative influence and sabotage all attempts at progress. It can also refer to perceiving someone as not quite a real person, explaining their behavior with labels and stereotypes rather than seeking to understand. In both cases, there is a complete failure of empathy. This means that your very best and strongest efforts come to nothing. You can have a soaring imaginative concept of the creative possibilities here. You can have the will to be true to that concept and carry it through. You're not doing anything wrong. The problem is that these creative possibilities are just not available when things are blocked. Small concerns dominate. The adaptive response is not to strive constantly to rise to a higher level, but to focus your attention on the small details, the immediate, uninspiring reality. Image, heaven and earth do not interact, blocked. A noble one uses his strengths sparingly to avoid hardship. He does not allow himself honors and payment. Inspiration soars upward, the opportunities for its realization sink ever further out of reach below. There is no creative connection between the two. The noble one has noticed that the harder you bang your head against a brick wall, the more bruised you get, and so he is economical with his energy and talents. Equally, he does not look for rewards under this regime. The ones who are rewarded now are not noble. He has other priorities than external results and recognition. Sequence. Blocked follows from hexagram 11, flow. Things cannot end with flowing together, and so blocked follows. Effortless communication and mutual openness is a beautiful thing, but it cannot last forever, and perhaps it's somehow incomplete. Could it be that we need to be blocked and cut off so we can grow more strongly from deeper roots? Next, we will look at our changing lines 3 and 6, which put in a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Line 3, an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. So back to our primary hexagram 31, influence, changing line 3. Influence in your thighs, holding on to your following, going on shame. You're moved to run, swiftly and strongly, after your object of your desire. You fixate on it and pursue it reflexively, one step following the next faster than you thought. Wholly invested in the pursuit, you fail to see the better possibilities around you. Your desire distracts you from what you truly want. An essential first step is to get a grip on this following, to recognize that this pattern is not good for you, and you need to bring it under control. However, recognition alone is not enough. Going on in the same direction, just in a more conscious and controlled way, is shameful. You need a new destination. And changing line 6, influence in your jaws, cheeks, and tongue. Words are a way to express an influence while keeping at a safe distance from real action. They are not good or bad. They are simply a way for ideas and feelings to find an outlet with no direct consequences. But eloquent words carry emotional power and have indirect consequences. They magnify and spread the influence that inspired them. Yet they should still not be mistaken for anything more than words. Next, we will look at Venabelle Wen's I-ming The Oracle. Highly recommend picking up a copy of this. A lot of it is really good introduction into the I-ming. Hexagram 31, our primary hexagram. Mutual accord, the oracle. Now is the time to cultivate influence. Attract what you seek without pursuing. Receive others with humility and non-judgment. On their own accord, they'll come. Endeavor to give more than you receive, and the paradox of life is that this will grant you more than you give. To attract love, emanate with love. Be loving. Show your feelings, and people will have feelings for you. Let the people move you, and you will move the people. Reciprocal attraction, mutual influence. Lovers are joyous and prosperous. Atop the mountain there is a lake, enduring joy and prosperity. Mutual accord and completion. The sage is selfless and open-minded toward all people. A good omen, auspicious to proceed. Taking the maiden as a wife brings good fortune. Auspicious for unions between heaven and earth, yin and yang. There is prosperity to be had in the mutual influence. The parable of taking a maiden as a wife is a metaphor for taking a developing concept to the next level by committing to it. The oracle affirms that what you contemplate is worthy of manifestation. Commit to the endeavor, and it will yield great fruition. What you put into that endeavor is exactly what you will get out of it. If the inquiry is about love or marriage, then this hexagram is a very auspicious omen. In business, auspicious for mergers and acquisitions. The character xian, with the addition of the character for heart, xin, becomes the word for emotion and sentimentality, gan. Thus, xian is about sensation, feelings, and influencing another through touch, be that physical touch or touching of another's heart. Note also that implied in the subtext of mutual accord is tension. For feelings to be aroused between the lower, in this case mountain, and the upper, lake, there must also be an intense strain or suspense. The love and romance hexagrams. There are 4 hexagrams that address romantic love and civil unions or marriage. Hexagrams 31, 32, 53, and 54. Here, hexagram 31 refers to the mutual attraction and sexual chemistry experienced by the young couple in love. Next, we will look at our supporting hexagram 12, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Stalemate. The oracle. What should be flowing is going stale. The ill-intentioned are blocking the flow. Risk of loss. Practice the virtue of frugality to alleviate difficulties. Incompetence prevails. Honor the gods and ancestors for protection, and come what may, no matter how grave the iniquity, you cannot falter in your own virtue. Do not let their malignity erode your integrity. If you want to know why the malevolent has come out victorious, you may ask the oracle. Heaven and earth divided, stagnation, cessation of movement. In times of poor harvest, the sage conserves. Despite difficult times, desperation does not lead to decline of virtue. The sage receives no blessings or gains, no favors are earned. The great depart and the inferior arrive. The malice of others creates an impasse. There has been a halt in growth and progress. No advancing, no flow. Boding ill for good intentions. Poor prospects if a union is contemplated. Practice the virtue of frugality to alleviate difficulties. Heaven and earth are estranged. As a result, big losses and small gains. You know it's your turn to move, but you don't know where to go. Feeling like a draw. Change the game. And next we will look at our changing lines 3 and 6, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 3 has the general context, an emerging identity, facing a transition, with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Hexagram 31, changing line 3. Mutual accord, changing line 3. Sensation at the thigh, inquietude and patience inspire followers. Take corrective measures to avoid regret. This line tells the story of one who is inspired to follow those walking ahead, but who is too weak to keep up. The oracle advises not to follow, but rather to lead. Inspire followers instead. This is the final line of the trigram mountain. The two yang lines from the upper trigram lake blocking it from ascent. The two yang lines of lake represent obstacles in your way. Instead of following others to become who you're not, stay who you are and lead those behind and below you. Siu is the name of Hexagram 17, inspiring followers. And our 6th line, sensations at the cheek and tongue, a superficial skin-deep accord only. Charming one to follow you is not true influence. You may be eloquent and moving with your words, but the influence is superficial. The sense of this line is empty rhetoric. The message, you cannot argue your way to success. To attain success in your endeavor will require action and true influence. Verse 81 from Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching is instructive here. Truthful words do not taste sweet. Sweet words are not truthful. The beneficent do not argue. Those who argue are not beneficent. The oracle is guiding you to listen closely and discern what people are saying, and also what you're saying to people. The word for cheek, fu, also refers to the part of a carriage or cart that stabilizes the vehicle. There's a subtext of support. The word for tongue, shi, is also a double reference to the tongue of a bell, the hammer part that rings the instrument. Mutual accord between your cheeks and tongue represent their interdependence for the functions of eating, breathing, and communication. This is the image of people-pleasing through rhetoric, but not following up that rhetoric with action. And yet, like the first line, the 6th line of the oracle offers no final prognostication of a positive or negative outcome. It merely offers its pithy statement. Next, we will look at Lu I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's alchemical in nature. Hexagram 31, Lu I-ming calls sensitivity. Sensitivity is developmental. It is beneficial to be correct. Marriage brings good fortune. Explanation. Sensitivity means feeling and influence. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is lake, joyous, and below is mountain, still. Firmness rests within, flexibility rests without. Stillness is the substance of joyfulness. Joyfulness is the function of stillness. This hexagram has the meaning of yin and yang responding to each other, so it is called sensitivity. This hexagram represents harmonization of yin and yang. It follows on the previous hexagram, pitfalls. In pitfalls, yin traps yang. Yang is not strong and yin is not docile. Yin and yang do not combine. So this work of harmonization is indispensable. But harmonization of yin and yang calls for spontaneity, not force. Spontaneity is non-conscious sensitivity, while force is conscious sensitivity. With non-conscious sensitivity, yin and yang harmonize with each other without any insensitivity. With conscious sensitivity, yin and yang are individually separate and sensitivity has limits. Therefore, in sensitivity, there is a path of development. But though the path of sensitivity is developmental, there is right and wrong non-consciousness, and there is right and wrong consciousness. You cannot say that the non-consciousness of a dead tree or cold ashes is the developmental path of sensitivity. Dead trees and cold ashes are purely negative, with no positivity. How could that be called sensitivity? Sensitivity means the subtle communion of yin and yang, as in the image of the hexagram, wherein a boy and girl are together, each unminding, till the yin and yang energies are full, and their feelings stir, and they naturally become sensitive to each other. This is unaffected sensitivity. How can you take ignorant mindedness to be sensitivity? Non-consciousness or mindlessness, in the proper sense of the term, means there is no human mentality. When there is no human mentality, there is no human mentality, there is the mind of Tao. The mind of Tao is a mind that is not minding. Minding means having the human mentality. When one has the human mentality, one lacks the mind of Tao. The mind of the human mentality is not the real mind. The mind of Tao is real. The human mentality is artificial. When you use the artificial mind, sensing is inaccurate. Yin and yang dichotomize. When you use the real mind, sensing is true. Yin and yang commune. Whether yin senses and yang responds, or yang senses and yin responds, they are equally ruled by the mind of Tao, and sense correctly. When sensitivity is true, not sensing by mentality, what is there that cannot be sensed? What sensing is not potentially beneficial? In terms of correct sensitivity, no one in the world compares to a chaste woman. The virtues of a woman are based on chastity and calm. Not easily losing herself to others, she will wait for a good partner to have feeling. This is feeling not by the heart, but by truth. In the qualities of the hexagram, first there is stillness, after that joy. Joy comes from stillness. When practitioners of the Tao harmonize yin and yang, causing yin and yang to communicate sensitively, if they can take the virtue of a chaste woman as their sensitivity, then whatever they sense will be right. Tranquil and imperturbable, yet sensitive and effective. Sensitive and effective, yet tranquil and imperturbable. They rest in the proper place. Whether they go along with things or reverse them, all is as they will, and they attain that good fortune. Got a little snake. It's a tiger's eye snake in my root chakra singing bowl. Kind of like the Kundalini energies. I think tiger's eye is like a third eye chakra kind of deal. Our supporting hexagram next we'll read, which is putting our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying influence that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 12, obstruction. Obstruction's denial of humanity does not make the superior person's rectitude beneficial. The great goes and the small comes. Explanation. Obstruction means blockage. As for the qualities of the hexagram, inside is earth, submissive, and outside is heaven, strong. Submitting to one's desires, outwardly acting adamant, negative energy is in charge, while positive energy retreats. Because strength and receptivity are separated, it is called obstruction. This hexagram represents yin and yang not joining. It follows on the previous hexagram, treading. Treading is promoting strength with harmony and joyfulness, causing yin and yang to join, so strength and receptivity are united. In general, when yin and yang do not combine, true yin changes into false yin, and true yang changes into false yang. The primordial is lost, and false energy enters. False energy enters, and true energy recedes. That is why Obstruction's denial of humanity does not make the superior person's rectitude beneficial. Denial of humanity is false energy. The superior person is true energy. When the primordial has not been injured and true yang is within, the single mass of true energy is the superior person. When the primordial has been lost and the true yang is scattered externally, whatever the body has is false energy. To follow that conditioned yin, indulging in emotions and giving free rein to desires without any limit, is denying humanity. That denying humanity is not beneficial to the superior person means that false energy is not beneficial to true energy. At this time, the practitioner of the Tao should get rid of intellectualism and gather the energy and spirit within to preserve true yang. Particularly at this disadvantageous time, just when the great goes and the small comes, when negative energy does things, if one does not know how to forestall danger, one will increasingly produce obstruction, and it will be very disadvantageous. Next, we will look at our changing lines 3 and 6, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. They take precedence of all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 3 as the general context, an emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Changing line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Hexagram 31, sensitivity, changing line 3. Sensing in the thighs, when persistence turns to indulgence, to go on is shameful. Explanation. Positive firmness should keep the mind of Tao and not be moved by external things. In the human mentality, positivity is not balanced. Seeing scenes, it gives rise to feelings. This is likened to sensing in the thighs. Sensing in the thighs, one cannot stop in the proper place, giving rise to confusion according to influences. Persistence in keeping the mind of Tao is not single-minded, and where there was the mind of Tao, one again gives rise to the human mentality. To go on to practice the Tao in this way would inevitably bring one humiliation before the wise. This is sensitivity losing the mind of Tao. And changing line 6. Sensing in the jaws and tongue. Explanation. At the end of sensitivity and also at the culmination of joy, following one's desires, working on the external and losing the internal, using clever words and a commanding appearance, all is artificial. This is called sensing in the jaws and tongue. These move whenever the mouth talks or laughs, and when the mouth moves, the mind moves. This is sensitivity using the human mentality, utterly lacking the mind of Tao. The 6 lines each have a path of sensitivity. One may sense with the human mind, or one may sense with the mind of Tao. One may have the mind of Tao and also sense with the human mind, or one may turn away from the human mind and only sense with the mind of Tao. These are not equal in terms of right and wrong. Only when one rests in the highest good and senses it is the mind of Tao always present. While the human mentality vanishes forever, true yin and true yang subtly commune, crossing the gap, like magnet attracting iron, and then the gold elixir spontaneously forms out of nothingness. We'll also look at our commentary section at each of our hexagrams. 31, sensing. keeping in mind that what we just read was the most focused part of the reading. Lake above, mountain below. There is a lake on a mountain. Thus does the superior person accept people with openness. Sensing means feeling. Above is lake, below is mountain. There is a lake on a mountain. A lake is open, a mountain is high. To be high yet capable of openness, this is the image of sensing. What superior people see in this is that just as there can be no lake atop a mountain if there is no open space, similarly, people can't be sensitive to anything if their minds are not open. Therefore, they empty themselves of what they have and receive enhancement from another. The Taoist master, Tzu Yang, said, "Stop exercising clever artifice as though it were effective practice. Recognize the other's method of immortality. The other is another person, but it does not mean an ordinary person in the world. It means the original, immortal, true person inherent in oneself. Because of mixing with acquired conditioning, it has run away and become ineffective. Long covered up and buried away, it is lost and does not return. Though it may show up occasionally, students who cling to the temporal, who stick to the conditioned, miss it even when it is right before them and are unable to sense it. This is all because of inability to refine the self. If one is unable to refine oneself, personal desires fill the being, and their sprouts clog the opening of awareness. Being filled and not open, whenever another one comes, there is no room for reception. Superior people who practice the Tao refine themselves and master their minds, getting rid of all acquired pollutants so that their minds are open. When the mind is open, the primordial energy comes from nothingness, so that one can receive enhancement from the other and become fulfilled. One senses by openness, the other responds with fulfillment. The small goes and the great comes. The gold elixir of immortality spontaneously crystallizes. This is like a high mountain being empty and open on top and receiving the moisture of a lake. It happens spontaneously without any intention that it be so. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 12, obstruction. Heaven above, earth below. When heaven and earth do not commune, there is obstruction. The superior person, therefore, is parsimonious with power and avoids trouble, not susceptible to elevation by emolument. Obstruction is blockage. Above is heaven, below is earth. The energy of earth rises up from below. The energy of heaven descends from above. The energies of heaven and earth, the celestial and the mundane, do not mix, and myriad beings are stifled. This is the image of obstruction. What superior people see in this is that heaven and earth, yin and yang, do not mix, myriad things are inert, and when the celestial and the earthly in the human being do not commune, natural reality is damaged. Therefore, they are reserved and reclusive at the appropriate times, sparing with their powers and qualities, thus avoiding trouble, not susceptible to elevation by emolument. To be parsimonious with power means to banish intellectualism, to conceal one's illumination and nurture it in secret, borrowing the temporal to preserve the primordial, not letting any external influences adulterate natural reality. This is because once people get mixed up in acquired conditioning, the false comes and the real departs. The mind is seduced by things, and nature is deranged and life is destabilized. No obstruction is more of a hindrance than this. No trouble is more of a problem than this. If one does not know to escape quickly, as soon as there is any ambition for honor or material gain, or any emotional feeling about objects of sense, this will cause even more obstruction. How can one then avoid injurious trouble? Not susceptible to being elevated to a high post in the world, one is not moved by glory or emolument, much less by petty gains. The words parsimonious with power are very pregnant, involving many things and most detailed effort. Whatever talent or knowledge one has, one should hide it and be stolid as a monumental rampart, forgetting others and self, having power yet not being conscious of it. If one is conscious of one's power, that is not being parsimonious. Precisely because one is not conscious of one's power, one cannot be elevated by emolument. If emolument cannot elevate one, the trouble is no longer there, and the obstruction disappears of itself. Thus, though the earthly and the celestial do not commune at first, they will inevitably join in the end. So the effect of avoiding trouble by being parsimonious with power is not small. Next, we will look at James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes, which I've left links to in the description box below. You can find it online, and with those links. He is a practitioner of the Tao himself, and he's synthesized several I Ching commentaries in this one helpful place. He sums each of them up on his own, and he gives quotes from things like the Kabbalah and people like Carl Jung. 31 he calls initiative or influence. Other titles might be wooing, attraction, sensation, stimulation, conjoining, feelings, sensitivity, sensing, affection, influencing to action, tension, seeking union, persuasion, courting response, and importuning. Judgment, leg, upon fulfillment of the conditions implied in initiative, there will be free course and success. Advantage depends upon firm correctness, as in marrying a young lady. Good fortune. Ritzema/Karcher, conjoining, growing, harvesting trial, grasping womanhood significant. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of the influence that separated parts of an intrinsic whole have on each other. It emphasizes that bringing these parts into contact is the adequate way to handle the situation. The image, leg. The image of a marsh over a mountain forms initiative. The superior man frees his mind of preoccupation so that he is open to the influence of others. Literally, thus the superior man receives people by virtue of emptiness. Commentary, Confucius/leg. Initiative is here used in the sense of mutually influencing. The magnetic trigram is above and the dynamic trigram is below. Their two influences move, respond, and unite with each other. The male is placed below the female. This repression is her satisfaction and brings fulfillment. Advantage depends upon firm correctness, as in the marrying of a young lady. Heaven and earth stimulate each other, and all things attain birth. The sages stimulate the minds of men, and harmony is born. If we examine the pattern of these influences, the nature of heaven and earth is revealed. Leg. The lines of the hexagram all deal with moving or influencing to movement, and the figure is an essay on the different ways of creating an influence and the results engendered thereby. The lower trigram of the youngest son supports the upper trigram of the youngest daughter in happy union. This is correct because the lower trigram, here yang, should always take the initiative. No influence is so powerful and constant as that between husband and wife, and where they are both young, it is especially active. Therefore, mutual influence, correct in itself and for correct ends, is sure to be effective. Notes and paraphrases, judgment. Initiative succeeds only when it originates from the self. The superior man clears his mind and remains receptive to the will of the self. Wilhelm's translation of the name of this hexagram is influence, but I have chosen initiative to emphasize the idea of the proper source of the influence implied in the symbolism. Webster's Third New International Dictionary refines initiative as follows, or defines initiative as follows. Initiative 1, an introductory step or movement, an act designed to originate or set on foot, as a process or train of events, often used in the phrase on one's own initiative, as in don't blame me, he acted on his own initiative. The judgment states that the situation can be furthered only by the firm correctness associated with the proper contracting of a marriage. We already know that the symbolism of marriage refers to a union of opposites within the psyche. To understand what is meant by the proper contracting of a marriage, we need only look at hexagram number 54, propriety, the marrying maiden, to see the improper way to do it. That is, when the woman takes the initiative. Far from being a sexist idea, the symbolism reveals a profound archetypal truth. The polarity of forces in the psyche shows the ego as magnetic to the dynamic self. That is, the conscious ego complex in any psyche, male or female, is feminine, or magnetic in relation to the self, which is masculine or dynamic. In the I-ming, the self is symbolized by heaven and the ego is symbolized by earth. This primordial relationship between the two qualities is found in many symbol systems. Here's the Kabbalistic version. A quote from D. Fortune in the Mystical Kabbalah. This clearly indicates the function of polarity that prevails between the planes of form and the planes of force. The planes of form being the female aspect, polarized and made fertile by the influences of the planes of force. The Hermetic tradition describes it this way. A quote from the Kabbalion. There is this dual aspect in the mind of every person. The I, self, represents the masculine principle of mental gender. The me, ego, represents the female principle. In the contracting of a marriage between heaven and earth, uniting the polarities within the divided psyche, the ego must learn, usually through great suffering, that its correct role is a magnetic one in relation to that of the self. The work cannot progress until this lesson has been learned and accepted completely. As long as the ego insists on taking dynamic initiative, as usual, in the illusory world of appearances, the results can only be the kind of objective world we inhabit, one of chaos and strife. The lesson of this hexagram, then, is the realization that the only correct source of power lies with the self, and that the ego must yield to that source as a bride to her bridegroom. Unfortunately, the